I never understood why my best friend Rachel was so insistent on planning every detail of my 40th birthday party. But watching my husband Michael declare his love for her in front of 50 stunned guests at the Golden Rose, everything suddenly made terrible sense. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a carefully orchestrated performance. Before I share how this devastating birthday revelation transformed into the most powerful turning point of my life, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. If you believe in karma and enjoy stories about rising from betrayal stronger than ever, please subscribe. It's free, and my story might just give you the strength you need for your own battles ahead. The crystal champagne flute felt ice cold in my grip as I watched the scene unfold at the Golden Rose's private dining room. Every detail Rachel had obsessed over, the vintage chandelier lighting, the intimate round tables, the carefully arranged seating chart, now revealed its true purpose. This wasn't a celebration, it was my public execution as a wife. "Sarah," Michael began, his voice carrying an unfamiliar edge that made my skin crawl. "Before we celebrate another year of your life, there's something important we need to share." His eyes drifted not to me, but to Rachel, who stood by the ornate fireplace in her crimson dress, the one I'd helped her choose last month, both of us giggling over cocktails like schoolgirls. Now I understood those strange pauses in our conversation, the way her laughter never quite reached her eyes. The sterling silver butter knife I'd been fidgeting with clattered against fine bone china, the sound sharp as breaking glass in the suspended silence. I felt my sister Kate's hand squeeze my shoulder from behind, her maternal instincts already sensing what I was just beginning to grasp. The room held its breath, waiting for the axe to fall on my 15-year marriage. "Sarah and I have shared many beautiful years together," Michael continued, his practiced words confirming this speech wasn't spontaneous. But sometimes life leads us down unexpected paths. His fingers nervously adjusted the tie I'd given him for Christmas, the last Christmas we'd spend as husband and wife, though I didn't know it then. Rachel stepped forward, her heels clicking. Against the hardwood floor like a countdown to devastation, the emerald earrings I'd borrowed her for her sister's wedding last spring caught the light, each sparkle now a mockery of our friendship. "Michael and I have fallen in love," she announced, her voice carrying the same casual tone she used when sharing recipes at our weekly coffee dates. Someone gasped, probably my mother, always quick to vocalize her shock. But it was the scattered nervous laughter that followed that truly gutted me. These people, our friends, our family, were actually finding awkward humor in this moment. I caught glimpses of uncomfortable smiles, witnessed the tentative raising of glasses, as if some weren't sure whether to toast this announcement or not. "We never meant for this to happen," Michael added, reaching for Rachel's hand. "But the heart wants what it wants." The phrase was so cliché, so beneath the intelligent man I'd married, that a bubble of hysterical laughter threatened to escape my throat. My father's chair scraped against the floor as he stood, his face flushed with fury. "How dare you?" he started, but I raised my hand, silencing him. This was my moment, my humiliation, my story to control. I rose slowly, smoothing the black silk dress Rachel had specifically insisted I wear. "Well," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I suppose this explains all those late-night emergency client meetings." The room fell silent, all eyes darting between the three of us. "And Rachel, darling, it certainly explains why you were so adamant about me wearing black tonight. How thoughtful of you to dress me for my own funeral." Michael had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Sarah, we didn't want to hurt you." "No?" I interrupted, taking a deliberate sip of champagne. "Then perhaps you shouldn't have chosen my 40th birthday party for this charming announcement." I turned to Rachel, who was clutching Michael's arm like a prize. "But then again, you always did have a flair for the dramatic, didn't you?" The Cartier love bracelet Michael had given me for our 10th anniversary suddenly felt like it was burning my skin. With deliberate care, I unclasped it and let it fall onto the pristine white tablecloth. The soft clink it made seemed to echo through the stunned room. "You'll regret this," I said softly, my words carrying in the silence. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The slight falter in Rachel's smile, the momentary uncertainty that flickered across Michael's face, told me they caught my meaning. "Sarah?" Rachel stepped forward, reaching for me as if 15 years of friendship gave her that right. I stepped back, my movement so smooth it made her gesture appear clumsy. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate," I addressed the room, my voice carrying the warmth of an Arctic winter. "Please enjoy the cake. Rachel spent hours choosing it. After all, it would be a shame to let all her careful planning go to waste." As I walked out of the Golden Rose that night, head high and steps measured, I heard the murmur of conversations explode behind me. Let them talk. Let them speculate. They had no idea what was coming. Because while Michael and Rachel had spent months planning their grand revelation, they'd forgotten one crucial detail about me. I'd always been better at playing the long game. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk, and I finally allowed myself a small, knowing smile. They thought this was the end of my story. They were wrong. This was just the beginning. The morning after my birthday catastrophe, I sat in my parked car outside Michael's suburban dream house, watching the sunrise paint the sky in mocking shades of pink and gold. My phone had exploded with notifications. 47 missed calls, 93 text messages, and countless social media alerts. Everyone wanted to know if I was okay, to offer their sympathy, to get the inside scoop on the scandal. I ignored them all. Instead of drowning in tears or wine like they probably expected, I channeled my rage into something more productive. Preparation. The first thing I did was drive to the bank the moment it opened. 15 years as a financial advisor had taught me the importance of acting quickly when assets were at stake. I withdrew half of our joint accounts, legally mine as our prenup stipulated, and opened a new account at a different bank. Let Michael wake up to those notifications. Mrs. Anderson, the bank manager, Mr. Phillips, had peered at me with concern. "Are you sure you want to make such substantial transfers this morning?" "It's Ms. Carter now," I corrected him, using my maiden name for the first time in 15 years. "And yes, I'm absolutely certain." The look of confusion on his face when I closed our joint safety deposit box was almost comical. Inside had been the original deed to our house, Michael's grandfather's vintage watch collection, and documentation of all our investments. I took what was legally mine and left the rest. I wasn't interested in being petty. I was interested in being smart. My next stop was a sleek apartment complex downtown, the kind of place Michael had always dismissed as too modern, too cold. I signed a 6-month lease using my maiden name, paying the entire amount up front. The leasing agent's eyes widened at my efficiency in handling the paperwork, but I'd learned from my years in finance that speed and precision were everything. "The movers will be here this afternoon," I informed her, having already arranged everything through an app on my phone during the drive over. I'd chosen this building specifically because it had top-notch security and was exactly halfway between my office and the courthouse. Location matters, especially when you're planning a war. By noon, I was sitting in Thomas Wright's office, the city's most ruthless divorce attorney and, coincidentally, someone whose investment portfolio I'd managed successfully for years. "Sarah?" He leaned back in his leather chair. "I always enjoyed our quarterly meetings, but I never expected to see you on this side of the desk." I pulled out a USB drive containing files I'd spent the early morning hours collecting. "I need the best, Tom. And I need someone who understands that revenge is a dish best served through absolutely legal channels." He raised an eyebrow as he plugged in the drive. "Tell me everything." While Tom reviewed the documents, I made 2 more calls. The first was to my office, informing them I'd be working remotely for the next week. As one of their top advisors, with a client portfolio worth millions, they didn't question it. The second call was to a private investigator, another client whose financial acumen I'd helped build over the years. "Lisa," I said when she answered, "remember how you always said you owed me one after that tech stock tip in 2021? I'm calling in that favor." By late afternoon, I'd moved into my new apartment. The space was minimalist and pristine, nothing like the warm, cluttered home I'd built with Michael. The movers had followed my instructions perfectly, bringing only what I'd listed: my personal belongings, my home office equipment, and select pieces of furniture that were explicitly mine. I left everything else, every photo, every shared purchase, every memory. My phone kept buzzing. Kate had called 17 times. My mother's texts were becoming increasingly frantic. Even my father, who rarely used his phone, had left 3 voicemails. I sent them all the same brief message: "I'm safe, I need time, I'll reach out when I'm ready." When I'm ready. Rachel had tried calling too, 12 times. Her last text read, "Please, Sarah, let me explain. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I screenshot it for evidence and blocked her number. Michael's messages grew increasingly desperate as the day wore on. "Where are you? Why did you withdraw that money? We need to talk about this like adults. Sarah, please, you're being irrational. You can't just disappear like this." Each message revealed his panic, his loss of control. Good. Let him feel a fraction of the uncertainty he'd planted in my life. That evening, as I sat on my new balcony overlooking the city, my laptop open to Michael's and Rachel's social media profiles, I felt something unexpected. Not pain or grief, but a cold, calculated clarity. They thought they'd written the end of my story with their little performance at the Golden Rose. Instead, they'd merely set the stage for my masterpiece. My phone buzzed again. Kate, trying one last time. This time, I answered. "Sarah, thanks." "God, everyone's worried sick. Mom's talking about calling the police." "I'm fine, Kate." My voice was steady, controlled. "Fine? How can you be fine? After what they did, what they announced, at your birthday party of all places." Her voice cracked with the outrage I should have been feeling. "Because, dear sister," I took a sip of the expensive whiskey I'd brought from my private collection, one of the few things I'd taken from the house. "They have no idea what's coming." "What do you mean?" Kate's voice dropped to a whisper. "What are you planning?" I watched a couple on the street below, walking hand in hand, blissfully unaware of how quickly happiness could turn to ashes. Let's just say that Michael and Rachel think they've written a simple love story. They don't realize they've actually scripted their own downfall. "Sarah, you're scaring me." "Don't be scared, Kate. I'm not going to do anything crazy." I opened my laptop to the dossier I'd started compiling. "I'm just going to do what I do best, manage assets and liabilities. And right now, Michael and Rachel are definitely in the liability column." After hanging up, I spent hours organizing my strategy. Every social media post, every joint account, every business connection, all would serve a purpose. Michael wasn't just my husband. He was a partner in one of the city's top law firms. Rachel wasn't just my best friend. She was a real estate agent whose success depended entirely on her reputation and connections. They'd built their affair on secrets and lies. I would build their destruction on truth and precision. As midnight approached, I received one final text from Michael. "I never meant to hurt you like this. I still care about you, Sarah." I took a screenshot of this message too, adding it to my growing collection. Then I ordered a new phone with a new number. The old one, containing all their desperate messages, would be preserved as evidence of their guilt and my composure. Tomorrow, I would begin dismantling their lives with the same meticulous attention to detail they'd used to plan my birthday humiliation. But for tonight, I allowed myself one small moment of satisfaction. I changed my relationship status to single and logged off all social media. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Let them wait. The city lights sparkled below my new balcony, each one a star in my universe of vengeance. I raised my glass to the night sky, making a silent toast to new beginnings and carefully planned endings. Michael and Rachel had given me a gift they never intended, the freedom to become someone they never saw coming. 1 week into my self-imposed exile, my new apartment had transformed into an intelligence hub that would have impressed any corporate spy. My dining room table disappeared under stacks of documents, my laptop became my closest confidant, and my walls sprouted a web of sticky notes connecting seemingly unrelated pieces of information. I wasn't just gathering dirt, I was building an arsenal. Lisa, my private investigator, turned out to be worth every penny of her expensive retainer. Her first report landed in my encrypted email at exactly 7 a.m. on a Monday morning, just as I was starting my third cup of coffee. "You might want to sit down for this," she'd written in her message. The report revealed that Michael and Rachel's sudden love story had a longer history than their dramatic birthday announcement suggested. Credit card statements showed dinner reservations at intimate restaurants dating back 8 months. Hotel bookings under Rachel's business account, supposedly for client meetings, coincidentally aligned with Michael's out-of-town court. Appearances. The timeline made my stomach turn, but my hands remained steady as I added each detail to my growing database, There's more, Lisa wrote. Your friend Rachel isn't just a successful real estate agent. She's been playing a much more interesting game. The documents that followed made my financial advisor's heart sing. Rachel's perfect record of closed deals had a darker undertone. Several of her largest transactions showed patterns that would make the real estate commission very interested. Properties undervalued for certain buyers, overvalued for others, all wrapped up in a neat bow of perfectly legal-looking paperwork. But I knew where to look for the loose threads, and once I started pulling, my phone buzzed. Kate again. I'd finally started answering her calls, if only to maintain one connection to my old life. "The nerve of them," she spat without preamble. "They're at Café Laurent right now, having brunch like nothing's wrong. Michael's wearing that blue shirt you got him for your anniversary." I made a note of the location and time. "Are they alone?" "No. That's the worst part. They're with the Petersons. You know, from his firm." Susan Peterson keeps posting supportive comments on Rachel's Instagram, talking about following your heart and true love finding its way. Kate's disgust was palpable. The Petersons. Now that was interesting. I pulled up another document from Lisa's report. James Peterson, managing partner at Michael's firm, had recently purchased a vacation home. The selling agent? Rachel? The price? Well below market value. I added another sticky note to my wall. My laptop pinged with an email from Thomas Wright. The preliminary divorce paperwork was ready, but he'd found something interesting in Michael's firm's recent cases. 3 of them involved real estate deals where Rachel had been the agent. The coincidence seemed too perfect to ignore. I spent the afternoon diving into public records, tracking Rachel's real estate transactions against Michael's client list. A pattern emerged, subtle but undeniable. Properties changing hands through complex corporate structures, all connected through a web of limited liability companies. On the surface, everything looked clean. But I knew better. I'd spent years helping clients navigate similar mazes legally. My doorbell rang at 6 p.m. The security desk had strict instructions about visitors, so I knew it had to be important. Through the camera, I saw Tom's assistant holding a thick manila envelope. "Ms. Carter," she nodded professionally as I opened the door. "Mr. Wright thought you'd want to see these immediately." Inside the envelope were photographs, dozens of them. Michael and Rachel at various locations over the past year, all time-stamped and authenticated. But it was the other documents that caught my attention. Copies of text messages, emails, and most interestingly, internal memos from Michael's firm discussing certain real estate transactions. "Oh, you foolish, foolish people," I murmured, spreading the evidence across my kitchen counter. They hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been mixing business with pleasure in ways that could interest several regulatory bodies. My phone lit up with a text from Rachel. "Sarah, please. We need to talk. What happened with the Riverside development deal? My clients are asking questions I can't answer." I smiled, adding the message to my evidence folder. The Riverside development, one of Rachel's biggest deals, facilitated by Michael's legal work. How interesting that she was worried about it now. That evening, I received an unexpected call from James Peterson himself. "Sarah?" His voice carried forced cheerfulness. "How are you holding up?" "Surviving, James." "Was there something you needed?" He cleared his throat. "Listen, about that investment advice you gave me last quarter, regarding the property acquisition through Highland Corp. The one Rachel brokered?" I kept my voice neutral. "Yes, that one. There seemed to be some discrepancies in the paperwork." I let the silence stretch uncomfortably. "How unfortunate. Have you discussed this with Michael?" "He did handle the legal side, after all. That's just it. He seems unavailable lately." "How strange. He's been so visible at Café Laurent with Rachel. I assumed he was available for everything." The sharp intake of breath on the other end told me my barb had landed. "Sarah, if you're willing to look over the documents again..." "I'm afraid I can't help, James. As I'm sure you understand, given the circumstances, I'm distancing myself from anything involving Michael or Rachel professionally, but I'm sure the SEC would be happy to review any concerns you have." The call ended shortly after, but I knew the seed was planted. James Peterson hadn't become managing partner by ignoring potential liabilities. As midnight approached, I sat on my balcony, reviewing my collected intelligence. In just 1 week, I'd uncovered enough to make both Michael and Rachel very uncomfortable. But it wasn't enough. I needed more. My laptop showed a new email from Lisa. "Found something about Rachel's last divorce. You won't believe who handled the paperwork quietly through a shell company." I opened the attachment, and my smile grew wider. Michael's signature was on documents dated 3 years ago, right when Rachel's mysterious, amicable divorce had gone through so smoothly. They thought they were writing a love story. They didn't realize they were actually documenting their own professional suicide. My phone buzzed one last time. Michael. "The partners are asking questions about the Highland Corp deal. What did you say to James?" I left it unanswered, adding it to my evidence folder. Let him sweat. Let him wonder. Let him start to realize that his perfect new life with Rachel was built on a foundation of cards, and I had just started breathing on it. Tomorrow, I would start making calls of my own. But tonight, I raised a glass to karma and compound interest. Both had a way of coming due when you least expected it. 2 weeks after my birthday disaster, I walked into my office at Carter & Mitchell Financial Advisors with a new haircut, a designer suit, and a plan that would make Machiavelli proud. The whispers followed me down the hallway, the betrayed wife, the woman scorned, but they didn't see what I saw. Opportunity. "Sarah," Marcus Mitchell, my managing partner, caught up with me at my office door. "We weren't expecting you back so soon." I smiled, setting my briefcase on my pristine desk. "A woman can only wallow for so long, Marcus. Besides, my clients need me." I paused deliberately. "Including the ones I share with Michael's firm." Marcus's eyebrows shot up. He was too polite to ask, but I could see the wheels turning. "We handled investments for half of Michael's legal partners, relationships I'd cultivated over years of careful networking and consistent returns." "About that." He shifted uncomfortably. "James Peterson called. He seems concerned about some joint ventures?" "I bet he is." I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. Marcus, you might want to sit down for this. We need to discuss restructuring some client portfolios. For the next hour, I laid out a careful analysis of our shared clients with Michael's firm. Every potential conflict of interest, every questionable transaction, every connection to Rachel's real estate dealings, all presented as routine financial oversight. My God, Marcus whispered, looking at the documents. This could be a nightmare if it came to light. Which is why we're going to protect our clients, I smiled, by carefully disentangling them from any questionable arrangements. By lunchtime, Marcus had called an emergency partners meeting. I presented my findings clinically, professionally, just a dedicated financial advisor looking out for the firm's interests. The fact that it would systematically dismantle Michael's professional network was merely a bonus. We need to act quickly, I concluded, before anyone starts asking uncomfortable questions. The partners agreed unanimously. Within hours, carefully worded emails went out to our shared clients, suggesting urgent portfolio reviews. The exodus was about to begin. Back in my office, I received a call from Lisa, my PI. You'll never guess who Rachel had lunch with today. Try me. Jennifer Santos. I sat up straighter. Jennifer Santos was the city's most notorious investigative reporter, known for exposing real estate fraud and corporate misconduct. She'd been trying to crack the luxury property market's darker side for years. How interesting, I mused. And was Jennifer taking notes? Like her career depended on it. Also, Rachel looked nervous. Really nervous. Perfect. The seeds of doubt I'd planted in James Peterson's mind were bearing fruit. Rachel, feeling the pressure from their shared client's sudden scrutiny, was reaching out to the press, probably trying to get ahead of the story, paint herself as a whistleblower rather than a participant. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Carter? There's a Susan Peterson here to see you. James Peterson's wife. The same Susan who'd been posting supportive comments on Rachel's social media. This should be interesting. Send her in. Susan looked immaculate as always, but her perfectly manicured fingers couldn't stop fidgeting with her Hermes scarf. Sarah, darling, I know this is awkward. Not at all. I gestured to a chair. How can I help? It's about the beach house. Investment? She glanced around nervously. James is worried. There are some irregularities in the paperwork. I kept my face professionally concerned. The one Rachel handled? Yes. James says, well, he says you mentioned something about the SEC? I pulled out another carefully prepared folder. Susan, as your friend, I feel obligated to show you something. The documents I showed her weren't anything dramatic. Just public records showing the true market value of their beach house purchase, compared to what they'd paid, along with some highlighted sections of SEC regulations regarding real estate transactions and disclosure requirements. Oh my God, Susan's face went pale. James said it was a special deal through Rachel's contacts. I'm sure it was special to someone, I replied smoothly. Would you like me to help you restructure the investment? Legally, of course. By the time Susan left my office, she was both grateful for my help and terrified of what her husband might have gotten them into. The text she sent Rachel canceling their upcoming spa day was just icing on the cake. That evening, I had dinner with Thomas Wright to review our progress. We chose a new restaurant across town. No chance of running into Michael and Rachel's crowd. The partners at Michael's firm are getting nervous, Tom reported, cutting into his steak. 3 clients have already switched their business to other firms. Apparently, they're concerned about recent revelations regarding certain real estate transactions. I sipped my wine. How unfortunate. James Peterson is talking about an internal audit. Really? Right after Susan's visit to my office? What? A coincidence. Tom's eyes sparkled with professional appreciation. You're not just going after their hearts, are you? You're going after their whole damn empire. I'm not going after anything, I corrected him. I'm simply ensuring that all our clients' investments are properly managed and compliant with regulations. If certain people made poor personal and professional choices that don't withstand scrutiny, well, that's hardly my fault. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. What the hell is going on? James is talking about reviewing all my cases involving real estate clients. I showed it to Tom, who chuckled. He's starting to sweat. Good, I replied, adding the message to my evidence folder. But this is just the beginning. Wait until the auditors start looking at Rachel's commission structures. On my way home, I drove past the Golden Rose. Through the windows, I could see another celebration in progress, another party in full swing. But this time, I smiled. Michael and Rachel's little performance at my birthday party had given me something they never intended, a stage for their own undoing. Back in my apartment, I updated my wall of connections, adding new strings between players. Susan Peterson's fear would spread through their social circle like wildfire. The partner's concerns would shake Michael's professional foundation. And Rachel's desperate lunch with Jennifer Santos? That would come back to haunt her in ways she couldn't imagine. My phone lit up with a final text for the night, from Rachel. The Petersons just canceled their listing with me. What did you say to Susan? I left it unanswered, but added it to my growing collection. Let her wonder. Let her worry. Let her start to realize that the perfect life she'd stolen was built on connections I had helped create. Connections I could just as easily destroy. Tomorrow would bring more moves in this chess game. But tonight, I savored the knowledge that my foundation was set. The pieces were in place. And soon, very soon, Michael and Rachel would learn the true cost of betrayal. 3 weeks after my birthday party, the first domino fell exactly as planned. I was sitting in my office, reviewing client portfolios, when Marcus burst through my door, tablet in hand. Sarah, have you seen this? He turned the screen toward me, showing Jennifer Santos's latest article in the City Business Journal. Luxury. Real estate market under scrutiny. Questions arise over high-end property deals. I skimmed the article, fighting to keep my expression neutral. While Rachel wasn't mentioned by name, the piece detailed several transactions that anyone in our social circle would recognize, including the Petersons' beach house deal. How concerning, I murmured, watching Marcus's face, especially given our clients' investments in these properties. My phone buzzed, Rachel calling for the third time this morning. I let it go to voicemail, adding another tick to my mental countdown. 3, 2, 1. Sarah! Kate's voice burst through my office line. Rachel just ran out of a showing in tears. Apparently, 3 different clients canceled their listings with her this morning after that article came out. I allowed myself a small smile. How unfortunate. Sarah. Kate's voice dropped to a whisper. Did you have something to do with this? I simply had coffee with an old client last week, Jennifer Santos. We discussed market trends. If she found some of those trends newsworthy, well, I left the sentence hanging. The rest of the morning brought a cascade of developments. James Peterson called twice, each message more panicked than the last. The internal audit at Michael's firm had uncovered some irregularities in his handling of real estate transactions. Specifically, cases where he'd represented both buyers and sellers in deals brokered by Rachel. By lunchtime, social media was buzzing with speculation. Susan Peterson had deleted all her supportive comments from Rachel's posts. 3 other society wives followed suit, rushing to distance themselves from any hint of scandal. The foundation is hosting a charity gala next month, Lisa reported during our daily update call. Rachel's name has mysteriously vanished from the planning committee list. I pulled up the invitation on my computer. Rachel had chaired that committee for 5 years, another connection I'd helped her make. Has she noticed yet? Oh, yes. She tried to call the committee chair, but apparently, Margaret Williams isn't taking her calls anymore. Margaret Williams, whose investment portfolio I'd managed through 2 divorces and a messy inheritance battle. The same Margaret who'd been at my birthday party, watching Rachel's performance with disapproving eyes. My intercom buzzed. "Ms. Carter, Mr. Anderson is here to see you." Michael. Earlier than I expected, but right on schedule for a man watching his carefully constructed world start to crumble. "Send him in." He looked awful. Designer suit wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. The past 3 weeks had clearly taken their toll. "What did you say to Jennifer Santos?" he demanded without preamble. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the role reversal. 3 weeks ago, he'd been the one in control, delivering his rehearsed speech at my birthday party. Now he was the one off balance, reacting to my script. "I don't know what you mean," I replied coolly. Jennifer and I simply discussed market trends over coffee. As her financial advisor, I'm always happy to provide insight into investment patterns. "Bullshit," he spat. "This article, the timing, the specific deals mentioned, it's too perfect. The partners are talking about an ethics review, Sarah. Do you understand what that means?" I smiled, remembering his words from my birthday party. Sometimes life leads us down unexpected paths, doesn't it, Michael? His face flushed. "This isn't a game. Rachel's business is suffering. Clients are canceling listings. The Williamses pulled their entire portfolio from her agency this morning. How unfortunate that actions have consequences. Sarah, please." His voice cracked slightly. "Whatever you're doing, whatever this is, it needs to stop." I stood slowly, smoothing my skirt. "I'm not doing anything, Michael. I'm simply ensuring our clients' investments are properly managed. If certain real estate deals don't hold up under scrutiny, that's hardly my concern. The partners are looking at every case I handled involving Rachel's properties. Every single one." "Well," I moved toward the door, "as you so eloquently put it at my birthday party, the heart wants what it wants. Apparently, the SEC wants what it wants too." Before he could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Rachel just left. Her 3rd failed showing of the day. Buyer mentioned the article and concerns about property valuations." I showed it to Michael, watching the color drain from his face. "You should go comfort her," I suggested. "After all, isn't that what true love is for?" After he left, Marcus reappeared in my doorway. "Sarah, the partners want to discuss transferring all of Michael's firm's remaining client accounts to other advisors. There are concerns about potential complications." "Of course," I nodded professionally. "We should protect our clients' interests." By evening, the damage was spreading through both their professional networks like a carefully engineered virus. Rachel's pristine real estate reputation was showing its first cracks. Michael's legal colleagues were starting to distance themselves, and their social circle, ever sensitive to the winds of scandal, was already choosing sides. My phone lit up with a message from Rachel. "Please, we need to talk. Everything's falling apart. What do you want?" I added it to my evidence folder without responding. What did I want? I wanted them to feel what I felt at that birthday party. The slow, dawning realization that their perfect world was about to shatter. But this was just the beginning. Jennifer's article was a warning shot, a taste of what was to come. I had more dominoes lined up, more cards to play. Michael and Rachel thought they'd written the perfect love story. They were about to discover it was actually a Greek tragedy, and I was the author of their downfall. Tom called as I was leaving the office. "The ethics review at Michael's firm is scheduled for next week. Want to guess who's on the review committee? Who's on the—" "Margaret Williams's husband?" I suggested, knowing the answer. Got it in one. Funny how these things work out. I smiled as I drove home, passing the Golden Rose again. Michael and Rachel's dramatic performance there had been the opening act. Now the real show was beginning, and they were about to learn that karma doesn't just come for the heart. It comes for everything you hold dear. 1 month after my birthday party, I sat in my office early morning, watching Michael's world implode. In real time. The ethics review had gone exactly as planned. Not that I had to do much. Once the committee started pulling threads, the whole tapestry of Michael and Rachel's professional entanglement began to unravel on its own. Emergency partners meeting at the firm, Lisa reported through my earpiece as I reviewed the morning's market updates. Started 30 minutes ago. Michael looked like he hasn't slept in days. I smiled, remembering how polished he'd looked delivering his birthday speech. Who else arrived? James Peterson, looking furious. His wife's beach house deal is all over. The morning news. Jennifer Santos did a follow-up piece. Seems someone anonymously provided documentation showing similar patterns in 12 other luxury property transactions. That someone had been Tom's junior associate, using a carefully constructed email trail that couldn't be traced back to me. The documents were all public record anyway. We just packaged them nicely for Jennifer's investigative appetite. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. OMG, Rachel just got escorted out of the Riverside Development Project meeting. The investors are demanding a full audit of all transactions. The Riverside Development, Rachel's crown jewel project, the one she'd bragged about at every social gathering for the past year. The same project where Michael had conveniently handled all the legal work, ensuring certain investors got preferential treatment while others, well, the SEC would be very interested in those details. Sarah? Marcus appeared in my doorway, looking concerned. We need to talk about the Hamilton Industries account. Hamilton Industries, one of Michael's firm's biggest clients, with investments spread across multiple properties in Rachel's portfolio. How unfortunate that their CFO was an old college friend of mine who'd been at my birthday party. Of course, Marcus. I assume they're concerned about exposure? They're pulling everything. Not just from Michael's firm, they're canceling 3 major property deals with Rachel's agency. Their legal team mentioned something about avoiding potential compliance issues. I nodded professionally, but inside I was savoring each word. Hamilton Industries' withdrawal would send shockwaves through both Michael's and Rachel's professional circles. The dominoes were falling faster now, each one hitting harder than the last. My office phone lit up. Rachel again. This time I answered. You have to stop this, she pleaded, her voice raw. The Riverside investors are talking about filing complaints with the Real Estate Commission. My entire agency is under scrutiny. Even deals I closed years ago are being questioned. How? Uncomfortable for you, I replied coolly. Almost as uncomfortable as watching my husband declare his love for my best friend at my birthday party. Sarah, please, we never meant… To get caught? I interrupted. To have your professional conduct examined? To face consequences? Tell? Me, Rachel, what exactly didn't you mean to happen? Before she could respond, my email pinged with an alert. The City Business Journal had just published another article. Ethics Review reveals pattern of questionable legal representation in Betrayal, luxury real estate deals. Oh my, I feigned surprise, though I'd known the article was coming. It seems Michael's partners have some concerns about his handling of certain cases. I should go. I'm sure you'll want to comfort him during this difficult time. I hung up as Lisa's text came through. Michael just left the partners' meeting. He's been suspended pending further investigation. The rest of the day brought a cascade of developments. 3 more of Rachel's major listings were canceled. 2 social committees quietly removed her name from their rosters. The charity gala she'd helped organize for years suddenly had a new chairperson. The foundation board is meeting tomorrow, Margaret Williams informed me over lunch at an exclusive restaurant, one where Rachel had recently been told her membership was under review. Really? I sipped my wine. Any particular agenda items? Just a routine review of all our real estate holdings and legal representation. Margaret smiled knowingly. We take our fiduciary responsibilities very seriously. By late afternoon, the pressure had begun to show in their social media presence. Rachel's carefully curated Instagram feed, usually full of luxury property photos and social event highlights, had gone silent. Michael's LinkedIn profile quietly removed several case highlights involving real estate clients. They were seen arguing outside LeBlanc, Lisa reported, rather publicly. Apparently, Michael's blaming Rachel for the ethics review, and she's blaming him for not properly disclosing their relationship in client documents. Perfect. Let them turn on each other. Let them feel the strain of watching their carefully built facade crack under scrutiny. My phone buzzed with a message from Michael. This has to stop. The partners are talking about a formal separation. Everything I've worked for is at risk. I screenshot the message before replying. As you said at my birthday party, sometimes life leads us down unexpected paths. That evening, I met with Tom to review our progress. We chose a new restaurant with a perfect view of the city skyline, including the Riverside development's distinctive towers. The SEC has opened a preliminary inquiry, Tom reported, sliding a document across the table. Apparently, some interesting patterns emerged in the ownership structures of certain luxury developments. I smiled, remembering how proud Rachel had been of her creative financing solutions for preferred clients. How fascinating. Michael's suspension becomes public knowledge tomorrow. The firm's trying to distance itself from any hint of impropriety. And Rachel's agency? Board meeting scheduled for Friday. Word is they're discussing a leadership restructuring in light of recent events. My phone lit up with another text from Rachel. My biggest clients are abandoning me. The agency board is meeting without me. Even the country club is reviewing my membership. What more do you want? I showed Tom the message. He raised his eyebrows, impressed. You've orchestrated quite a fall from grace. I haven't orchestrated anything, I corrected him. I simply created conditions where truth could flourish. They did the rest themselves. On my drive home, I passed the Golden Rose again. Through the windows, I could see another celebration in progress. But this time, I didn't feel the sting of betrayal. Instead, I felt a cool satisfaction knowing that Michael and Rachel's perfect love story was dissolving into a cautionary tale about karma and consequences. My phone buzzed one final time. Kate calling. Sarah, she said without preamble. What exactly did you do? I watched the city lights twinkle below my balcony. Nothing they didn't deserve, dear sister. Nothing they didn't deserve. 5 weeks after my birthday party, I didn't have to do anything anymore. The avalanche I'd triggered was creating its own momentum. I sat in my favorite cafe, the one Rachel and I used to frequent for our weekly gossip sessions, watching the destruction unfold through my phone notifications. Ms. Carter. The barista who'd known us as best friends for years now served me with a knowing smile. Did you see this morning's news? I hadn't needed to. Lisa had sent me a detailed report at dawn. Michael's law firm had made its decision public. Pending a full investigation, he was being placed on indefinite leave. The press release was carefully worded, but the message was clear. They were cutting him loose before he could drag them down further. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Just drove past Rachel's office. They're taking her name off the building sign. I sipped my latte, remembering how proud Rachel had been when that sign went up. Anderson and Mitchell Real Estate was becoming just Mitchell Real Estate, another piece of her empire crumbling. Away! The domino effect is remarkable, Tom observed, joining me at my table. I've never seen anything quite like it. He pulled out his tablet, showing me the morning's developments. The Real Estate Commission had opened a formal investigation into Rachel's dealings. 3 more luxury developments had severed ties with her agency. And most deliciously, the Charity Foundation Board had voted unanimously to conduct a forensic audit of all properties acquired under her guidance. It's not just professional, Lisa chimed in through my earpiece. Their social circle is imploding. You should see their country club activity. I could imagine. The same people who'd watched my humiliation at the Golden Rose were now scrambling to distance themselves from the scandal. Amazing how quickly true love lost its romance when mixed with potential SEC violations. My phone lit up with a call. From Marcus. "Sarah, you need to see this. Michael just tried to access confidential client files at his firm." How desperate of him, I mused. How did that go? Security escorted him out. But here's the interesting part. He was looking for documents related to the Peterson Beach House deal. I smiled, remembering Susan Peterson's panicked visit to my office. Has James Peterson heard about this? Oh, yes. He's called an emergency meeting of all senior partners. The chain reaction was spreading faster than even I had anticipated. By lunchtime, social media was buzzing with updates. Rachel's carefully curated Instagram business account once, full of luxury property showcases, now featured angry comments from investors demanding answers. "Sarah!" Kate burst into the cafe, tablet in hand. "You won't believe what just happened at LeBlanc, the restaurant where Michael and Rachel had conducted many of their business meetings during their affair. According to Kate, they'd just had a very public argument in the main dining room. He blamed her for the ethics investigation," Kate reported gleefully. She threw a glass of wine in his face and screamed about him promising to protect her career. I added this detail to my mental timeline. Right on schedule. When facing destruction, people always turn on each other. My phone buzzed with a message. From Rachel. "Everything's falling apart. The board is freezing my accounts pending investigation. Michael won't return my calls. Please, we need to talk." I showed the message to Tom, who chuckled. Funny how quickly true love fades when careers are on the line. The afternoon brought more developments. Jennifer Santos published another exposé, this time focusing on the pattern of legal representations in Rachel's deals. Michael's name appeared prominently, along with detailed documentation of potential conflicts of interest. "The SEC isn't just looking at recent transactions anymore," Tom reported, reviewing his notes. "They're going back 3 years, right around the time Rachel's suspicious divorce was finalized." I remembered finding those old divorce papers, with Michael's signature hidden in the subsidiary documentation. Another thread in their tapestry of deception, now unraveling under scrutiny. Lisa's updates continued throughout the day. Rachel's luxury car being repossessed from her office parking lot, Michael being denied entry to his gym, membership suspended pending investigation, their favorite restaurants suddenly unable to find their reservations. "It's not just the big things," Kate observed over dinner. "It's all the little social deaths. The charity board, the country club, the school fundraising committee. Everyone's dropping them like toxic assets." "Speaking of assets," Tom interjected, checking his phone, "the Riverside development investors just filed a formal complaint with the SEC. They're alleging systematic misrepresentation of property values and investment structures." I raised my glass in a quiet toast. The Riverside development, Rachel's crown jewel, the project she'd used to build her reputation. Now it would be the cornerstone of her downfall. My phone lit up with a final message for the day. From Michael. "The partners are meeting tomorrow to discuss formal separation. Rachel's board is freezing her assets. Everything we built is collapsing. Was this your plan all along?" I added his message to my evidence folder, remembering his words at my birthday party about following your heart and new beginnings. How ironic that their new beginning was leading to such a definitive end. That evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the city lights, I received an unexpected visit from James Peterson himself. "Sarah," he looked haggard, "I need your help. The SEC is asking questions about all our real estate investments, not just the beach house, everything we did through Rachel's agency." I regarded him coolly. "That sounds serious, James. Have you discussed this with Michael? He did handle all the legal work after all." "Michael's not returning calls anymore. And Rachel." He trailed off, running a hand through his graying hair. The whole thing's a mess. There are patterns we didn't see, or didn't want to see. Sometimes love blinds us to truth, I offered, echoing Rachel's words from my birthday party. But the SEC tends to see things quite clearly. After James left, I updated my wall of connections, though I hardly needed to anymore. The dominoes were falling on their own now, each crash triggering new avalanches of consequences. Michael and Rachel had written a love story in disappearing ink, and now all their careful deceptions were fading under the harsh light of scrutiny. My phone buzzed one last time. Rachel again. "I've lost everything. Are you happy now?" I left. It unanswered but smiled at the irony. They thought they were writing a romance. They didn't realize they were actually composing their own professional obituaries. 6 weeks after my birthday party, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, studying my reflection. The woman looking back at me bore little resemblance to the one who'd been publicly humiliated at the Golden Rose. My hair was shorter, styled with an edge that meant business. My eyes held a confidence that came from watching your enemies crumble. Even my posture had changed. No longer the supportive wife and faithful friend, but something far more formidable. "You've changed," Kate observed over our weekly dinner. "Sometimes I barely recognize you." I smiled, cutting into my steak at the new restaurant I'd discovered. One Michael and Rachel had never tainted with their presence. "I haven't changed, dear sister. I've evolved." The same couldn't be said for the happy couple. My phone buzzed with Lisa's daily update. Michael spotted at Dawson's bar at 2 p.m., third day this week. Rachel tried to join him, but he left when she arrived. How the mighty had fallen. Michael, once the picture of legal propriety in his designer suits and power ties, now spent his afternoons drinking away his suspension at a dive bar. His perfectly styled hair had grown unkempt, his confident stride reduced to a defeated shuffle. "The partners made their decision official today," Tom reported, joining us at the table. "They're initiating separation procedures. Michael's cases are being redistributed to other attorneys." I took a sip of wine, remembering Michael's proud smile when he'd made partner 5 years ago. How's he taking it? Not well. He tried to argue that Rachel's deals were all properly vetted. James Peterson shut him down hard, apparently mentioned something about contributory negligence in the beach house situation. My phone lit up with a text from Marcus. Rachel just called the office, asking about transferring her remaining investments. She sounded desperate. Of course she was desperate. Her carefully constructed empire was now a house of cards in a hurricane. The Real Estate Commission's investigation had expanded to include all her transactions from the past 5 years. The Charity Foundation's audit had revealed irregularities in property valuations. Even her social media influence, once a key part of her business strategy, had become a liability, with former clients leaving scathing comments on her posts. "Did you see her at the grocery store?" Kate asked, her voice low. "Designer clothes, replaced with yoga pants and an old sweater. No makeup, no perfect blowout. She looked broken." "How unfortunate," I murmured, but inside I felt a deep satisfaction. The polished mask Rachel had worn while betraying me had finally cracked. Later that evening, I received an unexpected visit from Susan Peterson. She looked nothing like the confident socialite who'd supported Rachel's true love narrative at my birthday party. "Sarah," she clutched her designer handbag like a shield, "James is talking about divorce, the SEC investigation, the beach house scandal. It's too much." I gestured for her to sit, noting how her perfectly manicured hands trembled. "That sounds stressful, Susan. Have you discussed this with Rachel? She does specialize in property divisions." Susan's laugh held a note of hysteria. "Rachel? She can barely handle her own crisis. Did you know she tried to list her condo? Nobody will touch it. They're all afraid of regulatory scrutiny." My phone buzzed with another update from Lisa. Michael just tried to access his office. Again. Security stopped him. He was shouting about client files and evidence of proper disclosure. I showed Susan the message, watching her face pale. "Your husband's firm made the right choice," I said softly, distancing themselves from this situation. "Everyone's distancing themselves," Susan whispered. "The charity board, the country, club, even our children's school fundraising committee. It's like watching a social execution." Speaking of social changes, I pulled out my tablet, showing her the latest society page updates. The annual charity gala, usually Rachel's crowning, event had new leadership. The photos showed Margaret Williams beaming in Rachel's former position, while Rachel's name had been quietly removed from all committee lists. "It's not just professional anymore," Susan continued, her voice dropping further. "James says our whole social circle is contaminated. The SEC is looking at everyone who did business with them. Our friends are choosing sides." My phone lit up with a series of messages. Michael trying to reach out again. "Everything's falling apart. The partners won't even hear my explanation." Rachel's. "Blaming me for the legal oversight. Please, Sarah, this has to stop." I added the messages to my evidence folder, remembering his confident smile as he'd announced his true love at my birthday party. How quickly that love had soured under pressure. That evening, I drove past the Golden Rose, where it had all begun. Through the windows, I could see another celebration in progress, another happy gathering. But this time, I smiled, knowing that Michael and Rachel would never enjoy such simple pleasures again. My transformation was complete, from betrayed wife to architect of their destruction. But I hadn't done it through grand gestures or public confrontations. I'd simply created the conditions for truth to flourish, then watched as their own actions and choices did the rest. "You've become quite the force of nature," Tom observed during our final strategy meeting. They never saw it coming. "That's because they were too busy writing their love story to notice they were actually creating a tragedy," I replied, reviewing the latest updates. "They cast me as the discarded wife, the forgotten friend. They didn't realize they were actually making me the author of their downfall." My phone buzzed one last time for the night. Rachel again. "I never meant for any of this to happen. The agency is discussing termination. Michael won't even look at me anymore. Everything I built is gone." I left her message unanswered but smiled at the irony. She'd helped destroy my marriage, thinking she was building her own happiness. Instead, she'd constructed the foundation of her own destruction. Looking out over the city from my balcony, I raised a glass to karma and consequences. Michael and Rachel had wanted to be the heroes of their own romance. Instead, they'd become cautionary tales about the price of betrayal. And I? I had emerged from their betrayal not as a victim, but as a force of justice. Cold, calculated, and utterly unstoppable. The moment I'd been orchestrating arrived exactly 7 weeks after my birthday party. I sat in my office reviewing the morning's developments when Lisa's voice came through my earpiece. "Michael's just pulled into your office parking lot. Rachel's right behind him." Perfect timing. I checked my appearance in the reflection of my computer screen. Crisp white blazer, perfectly styled hair, an air of complete control. Gone was the woman they'd humiliated at the Golden Rose. In her place sat someone far more dangerous. "Ms. Carter," my assistant's voice carried a note of concern through the intercom. "Mr. Anderson and Ms. Mitchell are here. They're quite insistent about seeing you." "Send them in," I replied calmly, arranging the folders on my desk with deliberate precision. They burst into my office like storm clouds. Michael disheveled in a wrinkled suit that had seen better days, Rachel's designer outfit replaced by something off the rack. How the mighty had fallen. "End this," Michael demanded, his voice hoarse. "Whatever game you're playing, whatever point you're trying to make, it's done. You've won." I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the role reversal. "Game? Point? I'm not sure what you mean." "I'm simply ensuring proper oversight of investments and transactions. Isn't that what we all want?" "Don't play innocent." Rachel stepped forward, her perfectly maintained facade cracking. The SEC investigation, the Real Estate Commission audit, the foundation board, it's all connected. You're systematically destroying everything we've built. Everything you built? I raised an eyebrow. You mean everything you stole and corrupted? How interesting that you're more concerned about losing your empire than losing each other. Michael ran a hand through his unkempt hair. The partners are meeting tomorrow to finalize my separation agreement. 3 major clients have already withdrawn their business. My career is effectively over. How unfortunate. I echoed his dismissive tone from my birthday party. Sometimes life leads us down unexpected paths, doesn't it? My agency is in shambles, Rachel's voice cracked. The board is discussing termination. The Riverside development investors are filing lawsuits. Even my social media accounts are being flooded with angry comments from former clients. I pulled out my tablet, scrolling through recent updates. Yes, I saw that. Quite a fall from grace for Instagram's favorite luxury realtor. Remember how proud you were of that title when you helped me choose my birthday dress? Sarah, please, Michael. Stepped closer to my desk. We never meant to hurt you like this. We just fell in love. The laugh that escaped me was genuine. Love? Is that what you call it now? Tell me, how's that love holding up under pressure? I notice you arrived in separate cars. They glanced at each other, a flash of tension passing between them. Interesting. The foundation board is freezing all property transactions, Rachel whispered. They're saying my reputation is toxic to their charitable status. Karma's fascinating, isn't it? I opened another folder. By the way, how's the Peterson Beach House situation working out? I heard James is particularly interested in the documentation of that transaction. Michael's face paled. You engineered all of this. The SEC investigation, the ethics review, the client exodus. It was all you. I engineered nothing. I corrected him. I simply created conditions where truth could flourish. You did the rest yourselves. We could have handled this privately. Rachel's voice took on a desperate edge. Instead, you chose to destroy us publicly. Privately? I stood slowly, power radiating from every movement. Like how you chose to handle my birthday party privately? In front of 50 of our closest friends and family? My phone buzzed with perfect timing. Lisa again. James Peterson just left the SEC office. He's agreed to provide full documentation of all property transactions. I showed them the message, watching their faces crumble further. Isn't it interesting how quickly true love fades when careers and reputations are on the line? What do you want? Michael's voice cracked. Name your price. Whatever it takes to end this. I walked around my desk, perching on the edge to look down at them. Want? Oh, Michael, you still don't understand. This isn't about want. This is about deserve. You deserve every moment of this downfall. The charity gala is next week. Rachel's voice was barely audible. They've removed me from every committee. Even Susan Peterson won't return my calls. How painful that must be, I mused. Almost as painful as watching my husband and best friend announce their affair at my birthday party. My phone lit up with another message. Marcus this time. Board meeting concluded. Rachel's termination is official. I showed them the screen, watching Rachel collapse into a chair. Your timing is impeccable, I noted. Would you like to see what else is happening today? I pulled up email after email on my tablet. Michael's firm announcing his separation, the real estate commissions. Formal investigation notice, the Riverside Development Investors lawsuit filing, the foundation board's audit findings. This is more than revenge, Michael whispered. This is annihilation. No, I corrected him. This is justice. You chose to write a love story using my humiliation as your opening chapter. I simply rewrote it as a cautionary tale. Rachel stood. Suddenly, her designer purse clutched like a shield. We've lost everything, Are you satisfied now? I smiled, the same cold smile she'd worn at my birthday party. Almost, but don't worry, there's still more to come. The SEC investigation is just beginning, and I hear Jennifer Santos is working on a follow-up piece about certain property valuations. They left my office separately, neither looking at the other. Through my window, I watched them walk to their cars, Michael to his now modest sedan, Rachel to her downsized vehicle. No goodbye kiss, no loving glance, just two people whose perfect love story had crumbled under the weight of consequences. My phone buzzed one final time, Kate checking in. Well, how did it go? I smiled, watching Michael and Rachel drive away in opposite directions. Exactly. As planned, dear sister. Exactly as planned. The Golden Rose's evening lights were visible from my office window, twinkling in the distance. 7 weeks ago, they had orchestrated my humiliation in that dining room. Now I had orchestrated their complete destruction from this office. The symmetry was poetic. After all, they say revenge is a dish best served cold. And I had turned that dish into a feast of consequences they would be digesting for years to come. 2 months after my birthday party, I stood in my new penthouse apartment, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold. The view was spectacular, even better than the one Michael and Rachel had once enjoyed from their now-sold luxury condo. Life has a way of coming full circle. The SEC investigation results are official, Tom announced, handing me the morning's paper. The headline said it all. Major real estate scandal leads to multiple license revocations. Rachel's name featured prominently in the article, along with details of systematic irregularities in property valuations and transactions. Michael's law license has been suspended for 2 years, Lisa added through my earpiece. The ethics committee was particularly interested in his handling of the Peterson Beach House documentation. I sipped my coffee, a special blend from the exclusive roaster that had once been Rachel's favorite. And how are our star-crossed lovers handling their fall from grace? They're not, Kate said, joining me at the window. Rachel moved back to her hometown in Ohio. Apparently, her parents' real estate agency was willing to give her a junior position, under strict supervision, of course. Michael had fared no better. Last I heard, he was working as a paralegal at a small firm in the suburbs, handling routine paperwork under the watchful eye of his new employers. How the mighty had fallen. Did you see Susan Peterson at the charity gala? Kate asked, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. She practically tripped over herself trying to prove she was never really friends with Rachel. The charity gala, once Rachel's crowning social achievement, had been a triumph of karmic justice. Under new leadership, it had raised record amounts for the foundation. My name was now on the planning committee, while Rachel's had been permanently struck from all foundation records. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Another former client of Michael's transferred their portfolio to us today. Said something about preferring ethical management. I smiled, remembering Michael's proud boasts about his client relationships. Now, those same clients couldn't distance themselves fast enough. The taint of scandal had a way of making people reevaluate their loyalties. You know what's ironic? Tom mused, reviewing some papers. Their affair actually made you stronger. Your client base has doubled since the scandal broke. Turns out people appreciate someone who handles betrayal with grace and competence. He was right. While Michael and Rachel's world had crumbled, mine had flourished. My reputation for ethical financial management had attracted numerous high-profile clients, including several who had witnessed my humiliation at the Golden Rose. Riverside development investors specifically requested you to handle their restructured portfolios, Marcus added. They were impressed by your attention to regulatory compliance. The final piece of justice had come from an unexpected source, Jennifer Santos's comprehensive exposé on real estate fraud in the luxury market. Rachel and Michael featured Prominently, their love story recast as a cautionary tale of professional misconduct and betrayal. My phone lit up with one last message from Rachel. I hope you're happy now. You've won. We've lost everything. I added it to my evidence folder, though I hardly needed more proof of their downfall. No, Rachel, I whispered to myself. I didn't win. You just lost. Everything you stole, everything you built on lies, everything you thought you'd gotten away with. Later that evening, I drove past the Golden Rose. Through the windows, I could see another celebration in progress, someone else's special moment unfolding in that fateful dining room. But this time, I felt no pain, no anger, no desire for revenge. Those emotions had served their purpose and been transformed into something far more valuable: wisdom. Kate joined me for dinner at my new favorite restaurant, an exclusive spot, where Michael and Rachel's names had been quietly removed from the preferred clients list. You know what amazes me? She said, studying my face. You're actually happier now than you were before their betrayal. She was right. The woman who had stood shell-shocked at her birthday party had been replaced by someone stronger, someone who understood that the best revenge wasn't just about destroying your enemies, it was about transcending them. Sometimes, I replied, raising my glass, what looks like an ending is actually a beginning. They thought they were writing a love story, but they were actually writing their own downfall. And in doing so, they gave me the greatest gift of all, the chance to become someone they never saw coming. My phone buzzed one final time. Michael. I'm sorry. For everything. I wish I could take it all back. I didn't respond. His regret, like Rachel's, was too little, too late. They had chosen their path at my birthday party, staging their grand romantic gesture without considering the consequences. Now they were living with those consequences while I was living my best life. Looking out over the city lights, I smiled, knowing that somewhere out there, two people who had once thought themselves untouchable were learning the hard way, that karma always collects its debts, with interest.